Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So a major victory for Republicans in redistricting out of the state of New York in a cycle where it seemed like everything was going wrong for them. Maybe things are turning around. We saw what happened in Maryland about a week ago. And New York, a judge in the state of New York has struck down the most ridiculous redistricting map that I think that we've ever seen and has ordered new maps. So we are going to talk about this. Will it stand? Maybe, maybe not. But we are going to discuss this at hand as well as do another mini redistricting update in this video. But I have to tell you guys about my friends over at Noble Gold. So with all that's happening in the world right now, no wonder you're worried because you don't know what's going to happen. And that's why you need the certainty of gold and silver in your investments. Precious metals will keep you safe from inflation and financial turmoil. And this month, for every qualified IRA, you'll get an incredible 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin completely free as a thank you gift. You know what to do. Call 877-646-5347 now to find out more or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. So here we go. We can get right into this because a judge in the state of New York has struck down the current redistricting map that originally passed, and they have to redraw the state's congressional map for the U.S. House as well as for the state legislatures because they are unconstitutional, because there are provisions in the New York Constitution that technically prevent this sort of thing from happening. And you can see this here. Judge Patrick McAllister said in his surprise ruling that the districts were illegally gerrymandered to benefit Democrats. What a shocker. Wow. And this is a Republican state trial court judge who did this. And he said he's going to give lawmakers until April 11th to try again. And if the Democrat-controlled legislature can't come up with a bipartisanly supported map fast, the judge said he would hire his own expert to redraw them at the state expense. So this can be done. This can legally be done. So we'll have to see what happens. It's possible that they do appeal this. It is also possible that they pass a map that is a watered-down version of the current map that they have in New York, but it is likely that they could be fighting this for a while, and maybe you could see some sort of a new map that is a little bit more favorable because the current map in New York is one of the most ridiculous maps I think I've ever seen. You have a state that gave Biden 60% of the vote or so, yet Democrats have far more than 60% of the seats. They have 20 out of the 26. You could do the math. That's close to 80%, and you only have 4 Republican seats. And look at the way some of these seats are drawn, because they are some of the most ridiculously drawn districts you will ever find on a map. You have the 10th district, if we can find it, because it's like looking at spaghetti. It's like trying to pick out which piece of spaghetti is the right one. This one, Jerry Nadler's district, D+52, more like gerrymander. I mean, this is one of the most ridiculous districts. Is it even contiguous? I can't even tell. But you look at it and they're just like cutting corners. They're going through neighborhoods. They're picking the Democrat demography out and they're trying to stuff the Republican demography in New York City into as many Democratic districts as they possibly can. It is a big mess. I mean, you're seeing what they're doing in Staten Island. The whole point of redistricting is to do 2 things. One, to keep communities relatively together. For example, if you have a place like Staten Island, all of that should be in a district that leans fairly Republican, and you should have obviously a little bit of New York City, South Brooklyn in that district, but either way, it should not necessarily override the voting power of Staten Island. Same thing with these upstate districts. And also try to get as much representation as you possibly can when you are redistricting. For example, let's say a state voted 50-50 for a certain candidate, and then you have 8 districts in that state. You should probably try and make them 4-4. At least that's the way that it should work. However, when you have the Democrats in places like New York and Illinois and California basically gerrymandering through the cities, they're gerrymandering, they're drawing these ridiculous maps, Maryland, Connecticut, just across the country, Oregon, usually they draw, we know how they draw the maps there. Republicans should be doing the same thing back to them, ideally, in a place like Tennessee, as they technically have done. but also across the country. They dropped the ball in Indiana, Kentucky, and had their own Republican courts strike down the maps out of Ohio. But you look at some of these districts here, they're ridiculous. And we see an arguably more ridiculous map right here in the 3rd district, Thomas Suozzi's district. I mean, look at how it does. You have this northern part of Long Island, and then it just creeps up. It climbs a part of Westchester County up here. And the reason why they do this is because they know how to keep their power, basically. Even if it's illegal, they're going to keep their power, do everything they possibly can, which is why this map could potentially get appealed to the Cuomo-appointed Supreme Court, and they could hold this map, even though it would completely throw all their principles off the table. But they don't care about their principles. We understand that. We know this by now. So it's not surprising if it does happen. But either way, it's very possible that that could be struck down again, and you potentially could see a different judge do it for a different reason, and the cycle could continue. So they might actually draw a map that is more favorable. Maybe you get 2 extra Republican districts, or at least they try to make it look like a halfway fair map, because Republicans now, the current map is actually pretty fair in my opinion in New York. I mean, the upstate is competitive or it's Republican, and you see the way that the maps are drawn in New York City. I mean, a lot of these areas, let's face it, they're going to be Democrat areas. We understand how New York City is. And then you have Staten Island with a Republican district. You have Long Island having 2 Republican districts. I think the current map is fine, but if you look at the way that they're drawing the new map, or at least the map that just got struck down, it's ridiculous. And you look at Maryland, because Maryland, we saw another Republican victory in Maryland. And now they proposed a new map, thankfully, where Republicans will likely pick off another seat, because you have an R+1 seat that was proposed by the state legislature that is likely to pass through in the Panhandle, which a lot of this area, in terms of the counties, a lot of these 3 counties are heavily Republican. If you've ever been to the Panhandle of Maryland, it is heavily Republican, although they have some urban areas that lean a little bit more Democrat, as well as the fact that you have Andy Harris now in an R+25 seat. Because if you look at the old map, the previous map that was proposed initially by Maryland, the one that they previously enacted, you had their most Republican seat at R+8. And if you have a Democrat wave year, that seat is competitive, and you might potentially see 8 Democrat seats in Maryland. And I think the next most Republican seat was like D+11. But the new map is a lot fairer. Usually you would have 2 safe Republican seats, and the rest would probably be either likely or safe Democrat, obviously, in a fair map in Maryland. But the judge that struck it down in Maryland really did a nice job. I mean, these people are ruthless when it comes to redistricting. They will do anything in their power to prevent Republicans from having power, yet Republicans in red states are too afraid to draw a favorable map that favors the Republican Party in many cases. I mean, look at this map right here. They were essentially saying that at best, the 1st district is going to be a toss-up, and the rest of the seats are going to be safe Democrat, essentially, as you can see from this map. This is what they think of you. They don't want you to have a voice. So in red states, I'd be fine with gerrymandering there. I'd be fine with drawing the Democrat out of Kentucky. I'd be fine with drawing the Democrat out of Nebraska. Well, obviously, there's no Democrat in Nebraska, but they have a Democrat seat, and that does matter in presidential elections, because that seat is one electoral vote, because they divvy up their electoral votes the same way that Maine does, and that can absolutely play a factor in that regard. But either way, you see what's going on. Redistricting, it's been disappointing, but at the same time, these are wins. If you get a few more seats in New York, a few more seats in Maryland, then you're already at the 218 threshold, 218 seat threshold to take back the House. You're going to gain a couple in Florida. Missouri seems to have been a disappointment, and the way that Democrats have dummy-mandered some of these states in places like Oregon, Nevada, New Mexico, and Illinois, and maybe even Connecticut potentially, it's possible that you could end up picking off a lot of seats, assuming that the national environment increases to like R+8, R+9, which a lot of the polling, the accurate polling, historically accurate polls, not the garbage MSN polls, indicate that it possibly could be. Then Republicans are going to have a very fun year. It just depends who exactly gets nominated for these seats. But either way, I'm confident we're going to get some good people in there. Obviously, there's a lot of swamp. The swamp runs deep even within the Republican Party. But it does seem this is going to be a very R-favorable midterm. All the metrics point to it being so. And also an our favorable midterm where you're going to get some good people elected. So it's going to be great. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle out.